Ship of Fools, also known as Unto Leviathan, is one of the best books I've read this year, and it's certainly the most surprising read I've had this year. I'm Connor, and this is The Chronicler, and today I'll go into depth on this book. I'm a little sick fighting COVID here, but it's been a few days since I've read this book, and I didn't want to let my thoughts dissipate, so I'm here to record this regardless. I don't even really remember how I started following this book in the first place, but what I do remember is that I was looking for a colony or generational ship book, which this is. The setting of this book is largely on this generation ship called the Argonos, and many generations have lived and died here on the Argonos. It's a very large spaceship, and so many generations have gone by that the original mission of the ship is seemingly unknown to the inhabitants. Parts of the ship are in disrepair, and there's definitely been a separation of classes where you have the lower ship people and then the kind of more upper ship people representing a lower class and an upper class. And our main character is Bartolomeo, who writes this story as a first-person past tense perspective, and I love Sun Eater, and that's exactly how Sun Eater is written too, so it was very easy for me to adapt to this writing style and just start getting into it right away. Bartolomeo is a pretty interesting character to follow. He serves as the advisor to the ship's captain, and he was actually born disfigured, where his arms were only like, I think he said 10 centimeters long. So if you can imagine that, his hands are full-sized, but his arms are very small. So his hands are basically hanging right off of his shoulders. And because of that, he has prosthetic arms, and he's got an exoskeleton too because his spine's all messed up. So he's wearing this whole suit, and he's got these metal arms. And then the one thing that he kept is that he has a club, kind of a clubfoot walk. So he kept that, and he said, you know, that really is part of what makes me me. And this kind of made him an outsider. But the ship's captains, it's pretty interesting that the captains on the ship are actually, it's not a democracy how they're elected, it's inherited from this one family, generation to generation. And Bartolomeo's actually been friends with the captain here for a very long time, a lot of his childhood, and Bartolomeo was actually abandoned as a child because he was disfigured. So he had an interesting upbringing that really helps give him a different perspective than a lot of people that are on the upper part of the ship that kind of serve as the guiding council to the decisions that get made on the ship. And that puts him in a really great role to be the captain's advisor, because some of the situations that are encountered in this book are very strange and unusual, and that different perspective can help shed some different light on, you know, give a different viewpoint to how a lot of people might think that all have the same upbringing. A lot of this book is really Bartolomeo exploring and talking with people. There's not a ton of action here. It's really a book with a lot of ideas and just making you feel certain ways. So things like discussions on what is evil, what is the nature of God, are things that you're interested in or kind of discussions you like having, there's some good stuff in here in that regards. And Bartolomeo, the main character, is actually atheist, which I think is definitely an interesting perspective, but he still enjoys having these conversations with the religious folk. One of the other major characters is Father Veronica, and she is a major character that Bartolomeo talks to a lot during this book, and the presence of the Christian church is a very big aspect of this book. So, like I said earlier, the mission of this ship is so far in the past that they don't really know what it is anymore. And the bishop of the church, the religious leader of the church on the ship, claims that this ship has always existed and that the mission of the ship is that they need to go spread Christianity out to all people in the galaxy or the universe and all aliens they encounter. Aliens have not been encountered, to their knowledge at this point, anywhere. And he actually has some credibility on his side, because if there's one undeniable thing kind of about the ship, it's that this major, huge cathedral was built into the ship, and it's clearly there for a reason. It's a huge cathedral, takes up a very substantial part of the ship, and even on the exterior of the ship, there's these huge stained glass panels that are protected by shields that face outwards, and you get some of that, you explore the cathedral quite a bit. So he's got that going for him on his side, the bishop. But like I said, Bartolomeo's atheist, so he definitely, he'll have these, battles of ideas with people and really just discussing to see how they feel about something. And he'll take that into account even if he doesn't agree with them at all or thinks that they're wrong. But it's interesting to see, and I like having these conversations with people too. I think it's important to get viewpoints outside of your own and understand people's ideas. Ship of Fools is split into 3 major parts, and during the first part of the book, it is mostly taking place on the ship. And they do travel from the ship towards this planet they end up calling Antioch. The bishop names it Antioch. And you do get some exploration on that planet Antioch. And some really strange, unusual discoveries happen there that even now I'm getting like the hair standing up on my arms, my back. Some really strange discoveries happen there. And the people have been on the ship for so long that they want off. They want to maybe set up a colony. There's ideas of a mutiny happening. People are desperate. Tensions are high. And ultimately, they end up going away from Antioch. I don't really think that's spoilers because that's on the back of the book. And as soon as the second part starts, some more unusual things start happening. And there are things of an extremely alien nature that begin to happen in places that are visited, that the feeling of dread and true alien unknown nature is unlike anything that I have read. I think growing up, my dad watched a lot of alien shows, so I've always had this kind of soft spot in my heart for really alien, strange things. But this book inflicted that, like, hair raised on your arms, hair raised on the back of your neck, your hackles are raised. It just really got to me. As soon as I got to this certain part in part 1, the book sunk its like hooks into me, and then it just carried me through the whole rest of the book. I didn't really expect this book to have that major horror element. It's more of a psychological horror element to it. But if you like that, if that's up your alley, this book has it in spades. A lot of politics, a lot of religious discussion, and philosophical discussion. But man, that real sci-fi, alien horror mystery is what drugged me through this book and made me read it in about 2 to 3 sittings. One thing I do want to add here about the book is that some people maybe don't like the ending of this book as much, and I thought the ending was pretty good. I think one thing you have to be comfortable with is not getting all your questions answered. And I think it's so fitting with this book to have to use your imagination and not getting all the answers because some things are unknowable. Some things are truly so alien that we just don't know. So it's hard to talk much more about this book because I really want you to experience this book like I did, where you don't know that much about it going in. What I've given you is quite a bit already. Don't want to go beyond that, but what I really want to emphasize here is that here on YouTube, talking about books, booktube, that's what they call it, or wherever on Book Talk or Bookstagram, there are a lot of books that end up in the circulation that kind of get repeated and churned out to people. Like, I love Sun Eater, but that's definitely a big series that's blowing up right now. Red Rising, Brandon Sanderson, a lot of these things get repeated, and it's hard to maybe find something fresh and new. I would encourage you to go out of your way, get off the platform sometimes, do some research of your own, do some diggings through Goodreads or other databases of your own. Even go to your bookstores. Look on the bookshelves, suggestions, just read the back of some books. Find something that doesn't really have that many ratings. This book did win the Philip K. Dick Award, I believe. So it is an award-winning book, but it's relatively unknown. I don't think that many people at all here on YouTube have talked about this book before, and I'm not even sure if I found it on YouTube in the first place. So what I really want to say is that, like, even if a book doesn't have the highest rating on Goodreads or the most reviews on Goodreads or the most people talk about it, read it. Because maybe it'll end up being one of your favorite books. And that's why I'm rating this book an A. My scale goes from F to A with A- and A+ and such in there. And then S is like greatest of all time tier. This book, I could see it going up my scale later on. Right now I'm sitting at A with it. Really amazing. One of the best books I've read this year, certainly. And I think it might age well and go further up my scale. And it's one of those books that I definitely think I'll be rereading in the future because it's not going to leave my mind. But I'm wondering if that really initial read through it with how it made me feel and this dread and this paranoia and what's going to happen next, maybe that the first time through is going to be the most effective. But there's still a lot of discussion about ideas and such here that I appreciated a lot too. So definitely going to reread this in the future. Like I said, the rating's an A, and that's where I'll cut off the non-spoiler portion. So if you've read this book, I'm about to dive into spoilers. I'm giving you the warning now. Please don't go to this part if you haven't read the book. So spoilers are starting now. All right, spoiler time. So I really enjoyed the first part of this book where you were really getting to just know the ship itself, all the politics, the goings on, the tension. People want to go on a mutiny, and Bartholomew becomes involved with, man, I don't remember the guy's name right now, but he's a dwarf. He has dwarfism. He's short. But that ends up being one of his best friends and a major character too. He encourages him to mutiny with them, and that ends up happening. And that's kind of how the setup for the second part of the book happens. But what really hooked me in is when Bartholomew and Father Veronica go to explore the more forested region of Antioch. And there they discover some crazy buildings that don't have anything in it. Doesn't seem logical at all. Just strange structures that are completely empty. And even talking about it now, my hair is rising again. And then they go down into this area with a bunch of consoles, and they open up one of the rooms, and they go in there, and it's just skeletons and skeletons and skeletons all hanging on hooks, broken, clearly battle like damaged. What's the purpose of all of this? They wade their way all through the back, and Father Veronica sees just dead infants, all impaled all over the back of the wall. No context given to any of this. What is happening here? They get the hell out of there, obviously. I was going, what is going on here? And we don't really get answers to this for a long time, really, and kind of in total. And that's what I really like about this book. This book isn't afraid to not give you answers. You kind of have to use your imagination. So kind of going on to part 2 spoilers and part 3 spoilers of the book now, I'll kind of combine these parts of the book. But what happens here in part 2 is we start with Bartholomew in prison for the failed mutiny, and it turns out that the whole thing was kind of known to the captain, and he was using it for political maneuvering. And I like the politicking that happens on the ship here. But then some stuff starts happening when Bartholomew's in prison for a couple months there, almost a year, I think. He gets a letter. We found something. I'm like, oh my God. This book starts just dragging me through. We found something. Something's going on. He gets these letters. And he gets bailed out. And the captain's like, yo, he's clearly become an alcoholic. He's stressed out. Yo, I need you, man. There's an alien spaceship out there. We think it's dead. We've sent people into it. He gives them, our main character, the down low on what's happened. We sent people in. There's been casualties. Ship seemingly empty, though. Just some crazy stuff going on. Really accidents on the ship. Strange gravity distortions. And if you've ever played the Stalker games or read Roadside Picnic, this ship really kind of gave me the Zone feeling, where it's just this so strange a place. Just crazy things happening there. Unexplainable, really, in technology beyond our own, but it's so alien that we don't fully understand it at all. The ship just gave me these immense atmospheric vibes that I was just so sucked into. The exploration of this dead ship was just gold. And the people losing their minds, people going completely like comatose, not quite comatose, but just like disconnecting from reality. Like you can't get a hold of them anymore, but they're awake and they're conscious and they're alive. People becoming extremely paranoid and hunting each other down. There's these two of the ship members that go to the alien ship, and they get set against each other, and then they come back home and they literally disappear, and they're just hunting each other in the ship, trying to kill each other. All these strange effects happening to people, and they can't explain it. There's like no air in a lot of the ship, and you start finding out these really disturbing, strange facts. Like one of the big ones that got me was, so their ship, the Argonos, was maintaining a constant 3,000 kilometer distance from this giant alien ship. And the alien ship is much bigger than their ship. But the mass of the ship isn't big enough to have a gravity of its own. But despite that, every like 2 days, the Argonos has to reset and move further out to back to 3,000 kilometers. All these people, and Bartholomew does a great job describing it, this alien ship has this pull, this pull that pulls you in, that makes you want to go in deeper and deeper and draw you in. Sometimes he's standing on the entrance to the ship and he can feel it pulling him in. And they really get pretty deep into the ship. Probably not too deep because the ship is just absolutely huge. They say that they could spend months or maybe even a year or more exploring this ship. It's just so immense, and the inner workings are just so foreign and almost nonsensical to them. And for a lot of the book, they're really just exploring, and not a lot happens. Stuff happens, and it's very strange and disturbing and, well, more unsettling. Like I said, fills me with this sense of dread. But there's no major like alien pops out of a corner and attacks you. And during all this time, Father Veronica and Bartholomew are having a lot of conversations. Bartholomew is in love with Veronica, but Veronica is a father. She's a member of the church. She's a priest, and she can't really, go down that path at all. But they have a lot of really interesting discussions about evil, the nature of God, things like that. Just some really beautiful scenes when Veronica goes outside the ship and Bartholomew follows her, and they look around, and it's a giant stained glass crucifixion. Just some really amazing personal moments there and discussions. And I was also getting this feeling that a lot of points during this book, humanity was more of a danger to itself than the alien ship really was to them, seemingly. Because a lot of this distress and casualties kind of came from humanity inflicting it upon themselves, getting stressed out, things of that nature, just dysfunctional. But then they progress deep enough into the ship that they can take off their helmets because they encounter an environment that has oxygen in it. Most of the crew doesn't opt to take off their helmets. One guy takes off his helmet and just goes with a knife, and that's one of the other fathers of the church. So people are really kind of starting to lose it more that have been going to this ship. And then there is a jump scare kind of deal where Bartholomew's going with 2 other members, and then he gets jumped by this creature. And it turns out it's this old lady. And she's really strong, and she's not making any sense. They sedate her, bring her back to the ship. They explore the ship for more people. They're concerned that there might be more people on the ship. God, what does she even tell them? Later on, she tells them some stuff that's pretty crazy, but I was concerned because, it's dangerous, and it's part of this book. People might say, it's called Ship of Fools for a reason. A lot of what they do here is foolish, but if you're this ship and you're humanity, and this is the first alien discovery potentially ever in the history of humanity, do you not owe it to yourselves to go explore and find out, or do you value your own safety more? Because potentially this could be the greatest discovery in the history of mankind. So I totally get that dilemma of how much do we explore, how much of this is a danger. It's really amazing. And I think he does that in a good way. Ultimately, it ends up being a very dangerous ship, but they don't know that for a while. And they aren't finding a ton to make it interesting, but they do find a briefcase that seems to be made of wood that indicates to them that people have been here. It was human-made. They keep making new arguments to say to the council that we need to go further and explore more of the ship. And later on, the lady recovers. They have the psychologist work with her, and she recovers. And this part really got me. It was so the old lady's talking to them, and she's talking about how they were being attacked by people, like men and women, and being slaughtered. And then the alien ship came down to Antioch and came and saved them. But the old lady specifically says the planet's name, Antioch. And they don't really make a point of this till later in the book, but I caught it because it's been pretty clear that the bishop was the one that named the planet. So if this old lady's been on the ship for like a long time, she claims she was young when she was rescued, and now she's very old, she should have no idea that the ship is named Antioch. And that I knew right then. I was like, oh God, get her out of there. What is going on here? And also just the way she was describing things, it's never really revealed like some of this stuff, you kind of, like I said, have to use your imagination and try to figure things out. She was saying that they were being attacked by humans and stuff. So maybe the aliens were on the planet and the humans did fight them, and then there was a little fight down there, and then different aliens came down and saved them. So maybe there was multiple alien races. It does turn out that the old lady is an alien. They start filling the room with gas to knock her out because they figure out. So what happens is that there's this young boy, and Bartholomew kind of built up this relationship with this boy, and they pull in this alien ship to dock with the Argonos. They build a dock, they go and talk. Not go and talk. They build a dock so they can get back and forth easily. And they ultimately decide that we don't have long enough to explore the ship. We want to keep going and maybe bring the ship to another planet where there's people that have a lot more resources that have the means to explore the ship fully. And maybe that's what the ship wanted all along, because they ended up at the ship because there was a signal on Antioch that sent them to the ship. And a lot of this information is like people were trying to keep it hush hush, and then you find out later as you go on that they were sent to the ship essentially, and maybe the ship was really trying to use them to ferry somewhere else. So they dock with the ship, and as soon as they start docking with the ship, things start going horribly, horribly wrong. And it makes sense. It was just so great to read through. The old lady starts when they start gassing her, or I have to rewind. Sorry, my thoughts are just going all over the place here because this part of the book was crazy. So Bartholomew goes and rescues the boy off the ship. He goes and finds him because the boy is very adventurous and he wants to be, headstrong and on his own. So he goes and explores the ship. He's lost there for 2 days. Bartholomew goes and finds him there. And the boy's just distraught, just sitting there. And Bartholomew's like, what's going on? And the boy's like, go. That door that you guys couldn't get through earlier is open now. Bartholomew goes, opens the door, and there is just thousands, countless of the same thing. Humans on spears. Thousands and thousands and thousands. In my mind, it's just countless. And it's in this zone with no gravity, and he floats over. He's just horrified. So they get the hell out of there. Bartholomew gets on the line to the captain. He's like, we need to undock immediately and get out of here right now. And a lot of the blame is ultimately put on Bartholomew because it was his idea to build this docking mechanism so they could warp and bring this alien ship with them. But the captain does go on to explain. He says, people might put the blame on you, but ultimately it wasn't. It was inevitable. It wasn't your fault. The ship was pulling us in. It wanted us here. This was going to happen regardless of what you did or didn't do. It really felt like the aliens were just letting them explore for a while. Aliens getting that kind of a feel for them, letting them fall deeper and deeper and deeper into their trap. And then they build this docking mechanism. The ships are docked. They can't get the ships undocked. The alien ship starts taking control of some of their systems. All their missiles and mines and everything that they try to use, the alien ship takes control of them or deactivates them. They can't get undocked. So then they ultimately start sending people away. And the plan ends up being that they are going to warp out of there. They're going to send out all their people that they can on shuttles and these giant harvesters and get them down to the planet to save them. And then the main ship is going to warp away and take the alien spaceship with it to as far away as they possibly can, out of the galaxy, they said, and out of the universe, if possible. And they are ultimately successful, and it's only at the very last moments that the alien ship really just starts going all out. It unfolds, these giant tentacles start gripping the ship and trying to rip it apart, and aliens start boarding the ship. You never get a feel for what the true... I kind of like it how they never reveal to you what the aliens actually look like, and if the old lady was one of these aliens, or if she was originally human or something, maybe. So really just an amazing book. I went way more in the spoiler section than I thought I was going to, and it's going to extend the length, hurt the watch time, but it's fine. I really just wanted to get these thoughts out here, and really if you've read this book and you can kind of connect with me on the spoiler section, I'd love it. We'll see if anybody does that. Not that many people have read this book, but that's really all I wanted to say in the spoiler section here. Great book. Thanks for watching the video, and have a good one.